Hey gang, Jesse here at EC Auto Repair, and working on a 2018 Hyundai little SUV car. This is one that was towed in over the weekend. Family is going on a family trip, and as they're driving down the highway, the vehicle just stopped. The engine died and it wouldn't restart. They got it off the highway. I went and towed them a different vehicle so they could continue on their trip, and brought this one back to the shop. So we're looking at today, it's a GDI engine, which is a gasoline direct injection engine. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time telling us how that works in this video. But when I rev this up, you can hear it's making a lot of racket inside the engine. When we got the vehicle here to the shop and my technician accessed it today, there was actually no oil on the dipstick at all. This vehicle has 120,000 miles on it. So upon further investigation, he went ahead and pulled the oil filter. Oil filter had a whole bunch of metal in it. So the noise that we're hearing has to do with a connecting rod or crankshaft bearing, most likely. Without pulling the pan, we won't know for sure, but what we do know is it for sure needs an engine on this vehicle. So this is a GDI engine, and the way that you know it's GDI, let me go borrow the cover real quick. Your engine cover will say GDI on it more often than not. Some vehicles that may not say it. It tells us also in our shop management system if it's a GDI engine. So how do you get into a situation where you need an engine at 120,000 miles? That could be a great question that this client is most likely going to ask whenever we call and tell them they need an engine. And guess what? These engines on these cars are not the most economical engine to buy right now because they have such a high failure rate. They're in high demand. So there's some maintenance services that we can do to keep from getting into this point. So why is it that there's no leaks in the car to speak of, no big leaks anyhow, and yet there was no oil on the dipstick? Where does that oil go? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. The oil is actually being burned or consumed and going out the exhaust pipe in the form of smoke and exhaust gases. So how do you prevent that from happening? I've covered this in some other videos, but this is super crucial, and it would have saved these people's engine had this service and maintenance been done accordingly. So BG, some of y'all might believe that I'm a fan of the BG products. There's lots of different products out there. I don't have near as much experience with some of the other products on the market. I am somewhat familiar with Lucas, Seafoam, some other products, but I'm very familiar with BG products. I run BG products in all my own vehicles. But a GDI engine, and this is where shops have failed to educate customers, but when you got a GDI engine, it actually needs just a little bit more maintenance than a regular engine or a gasoline engine. So what's the difference? GDI stands for gasoline direct injection. And what that means is they put the fuel injector that injects fuel into the motor underneath the intake and exhaust valves. Something they did to be able to meet emissions in recent years. In prior years, with just a regular fuel injection system, the fuel injector was up above the valves. What manufacturers have since learned is that the fuel going across the valves actually kept all the carbon washed off those valves and kept them nice and clean. When they moved the injector on the GDI engine to the bottom side of the valves, that fuel was not washing across those valves anymore, and then they started building up with carbon. What happened is the carbon chunks got so big and then they broke off, and then they began to scratch the piston walls or piston liner walls. And then in turn, now we have oil consumption, we have carbon buildup on piston rings, we have low tensile piston rings, and now we've got scratches in the side of the cylinder, and now we're having an oil consumption problem. Like, how does that how can that be prevented? There's what's called an induction service kit, a gasoline direct induction service kit, air intake valve cleaner. And what it does is we have a special tool that we pour this chemical into, and we'll actually connect it to the intake, and we'll start the vehicle up, and we'll begin this process. And it takes about 30 to 45 minutes for the service to run, but we'll put a tool on the throttle pedal, and every 30 seconds it revs the engine up, and it introduces this chemical and cleaner, and it cleans out all that carbon that's built up on the valves. Some old school guys use a walnut blast machine, where they actually mechanically remove all these pieces and go in there and use walnut shells and blast those in there to butt the carbon loose. That's not a service that I offer here. We use the chemical service instead. It requires less disassembly to make everything work. This service runs about $200. This should be done every 15,000 miles according to BG. For most people, that's only once a year. And you couple that, so this is going to clean up all the carbon that's on the top of the pistons, and it's on the bottom of the valves, valve stem seals, all that different things. You couple that with our 3-part oil change. The 3-part oil change has the cleaner in it to get the carbon out on the oil side. The MOA prevents carbon buildup. It allows those little tensile piston rings to be flexible again, hug the side of that piston wall. And of course, the fuel cleaner keeps the end of the fuel injectors clean. So I had a Hyundai car come in here a couple years ago, and these mom and her son was on a cross-country trip. This vehicle still had paper tags on it. It was a brand new vehicle, and they was broke down. The vehicle would barely run, and it was such a new vehicle, I didn't have very much information available to me on it yet. It was a brand new vehicle. Had like 900 miles on it or something like that. So I did a little bit of research, and I told them the best I can do for you on a Saturday, on a week, on an after-hours service is I can do this induction service on your car, because what I believe has happened is there's excessive carbon buildup that has actually plugged up 2 of your fuel injectors. This car was in derate mode. It wouldn't go over 35 miles an hour. It had a check engine light, had all kinds of things going on with it. I conducted this service. It took me less than an hour to do the complete service. Made the check engine light go away. All the power was restored to the car, and it ran great, and they was actually able to finish their cross-country trip without any issues. So living proof that just the way these are designed. But whenever this is neglected, then that carbon begins to build up. And I've seen engines on these Hyundais. I keep picking on Hyundai mostly because they're the ones that I see the most with the GDI engine. There's other models that have the GDI engine in them, but I've replaced engines starting as low as 49,000 miles on these cars, all because the complete maintenance package was not done. So I know you'll find this helpful. So where can you find someone that does this service? Go to bgfindashop.com and tell them you want an air induction service. If you're driving a GDI engine, tell them you want an air induction service, and tell them that you want the 3-part MEPS kit for the maximum engine performance for your vehicle. You'll get many, many, many miles out of this little car. Hope this helps. Let me know your thoughts. See you in the next video.